Kane, a human soldier, had never expected his mission to end like this. The harsh alien planet stretched before him, its landscape a mix of thick jungles and towering mountains. The air was humid, the temperature uncomfortably high. The heat pressed against his skin, making each step feel heavier. His mission was simple: infiltrate and gather intelligence. But everything had gone wrong. His shuttle had been shot down during the journey, and now he was stranded, alone, in an unfamiliar world. For days, Kane had searched for a way to get in contact with his team, but the only thing he found was endless jungle. His communication equipment had been damaged in the crash, and the odds of finding another human were slim to none. He had nothing left but the hope of survival and a faint memory of his training. He had to stay alive. He had to make it back. As Kane wandered through the dense jungle, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him. The quiet rustling of leaves overhead, the sound of footsteps behind him that seemed to follow just a little too closely. He couldn't see anything, but his instincts screamed that he wasn't alone. Suddenly, there was a rustling in the bushes to his right, and before Kane could react, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was tall, impossibly tall, with broad shoulders and a muscular frame. The creature standing before him was not human. Kane's eyes widened as he saw the alien woman. Her skin was a deep shade of violet, her eyes glowing a soft yellow that seemed to pierce the darkness around them. She wore armor that looked ancient but perfectly crafted, made of materials that Kane had never seen before. Her long, flowing hair was braided tightly, and a massive sword was strapped to her back. The woman was the very picture of power, her gaze fixed on him, cold and calculating. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Kane didn't move, unsure of what to do. He could feel the weight of the sword on her back, and he knew that if she wanted him dead, there was nothing he could do to stop her. Without a word, the alien woman unsheathed her sword. The blade shimmered in the faint light, its edges sharp, enough to cut through anything. Kane's heart raced as she advanced, taking slow, deliberate steps towards him. She moved with the grace of a predator, every movement fluid and precise. Kane's military training kicked in. He took a step back, trying to gauge the distance between them. He knew he couldn't win in a straight-up fight. His only chance was to outsmart her, to find a way to escape. He scanned the area quickly, looking for anything that could give him an advantage. The jungle was dense, but the alien woman's size and strength made her a formidable opponent. "You don't belong here." The alien woman finally spoke, her voice low and rich with a strange melodic quality. Her accent was thick, but Kane understood her words clearly. "This planet is ours. You are an invader." Kane swallowed hard, trying to keep his composure. "I'm not here to invade," he said, his voice steady despite the fear rising in his chest. "I was stranded, my ship crashed." The alien woman paused for a moment, her eyes narrowing. "Stranded?" she repeated, her voice skeptical. "You think I will believe such a story?" Kane tried again, his voice calm but firm. "I don't want trouble. I just need to find a way off this planet. Please, I'm not your enemy." For a long moment, the alien woman just stared at him, her gaze unwavering. Then, in one swift motion, she lowered her sword, its edge scraping against the ground as she took a step back. "You're lucky, human," she said, her tone still cold, but less hostile. "Most intruders don't get a second chance." Kane's heart still pounded in his chest, but he didn't dare move. He was alive, for now. But he knew that this woman was no ordinary warrior. She wasn't just some alien guard. She was something more. Her presence radiated power, and her every action seemed deliberate, controlled. She wasn't here by accident. She was part of something much larger. "What's your name?" Kane asked, not expecting an answer but needing to break the silence. The alien woman didn't respond immediately. Instead, she glanced over her shoulder, as if debating whether or not to answer. Finally, she spoke. "I am Vera," she said, her voice almost reluctant. "And you are?" "Kane," he replied, giving her his name without hesitation. "Kane from Earth." Vara's eyes flickered with something. Curiosity? Disdain? Kane couldn't tell. She seemed to be weighing his words carefully. For a brief moment, the tension in the air was palpable, and Kane felt as if he were standing at the edge of something he couldn't understand. Something far bigger than just being stranded on a foreign world. Earth, Vara repeated, the word rolling off her tongue like it was unfamiliar. I have heard of your kind. The humans are known for their persistence. But what will you do now, Kane? I need to get back to my people, Kane said, his voice quieter now. I've got to fix my ship or I'm never getting off this planet. Vara studied him for a moment longer and then, as if deciding something, she nodded. I will not kill you today, Kane, but you are in my territory now. I will be watching you. Kane nodded in response, grateful for his life but knowing that this encounter was only the beginning. He had no idea what the future held. But one thing was certain. Vara wasn't just a warrior. She was someone with a past, a story that he would soon learn. And somehow he felt that their fates were tied together, whether they liked it or not. As she turned to leave, Kane called out, Wait. Vara stopped but didn't turn around. What now, human? Why didn't you kill me? Kane asked, genuinely curious. You had the chance. Vara didn't respond immediately. Instead, she glanced back over her shoulder, her glowing yellow, eyes locking onto his with an intensity that made his blood run cold. Because you are not like the others, she said softly. And maybe, just maybe, you will be the one to call me by my true name. With that, she disappeared into the jungle, leaving Kane standing there unsure of what the future held but knowing that this encounter had just changed everything. Kane woke up the next morning with a sense of unease. The jungle was quieter than it had been the day before. The buzzing insects, the rustling leaves, it was all eerily silent. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Something had changed. He had seen the alien woman Vara leave into the jungle the night before, and now all he could think about was the strange words she had said to him. You will be the one to call me by my true name. What did that mean? Kane couldn't understand it. He had been taught about alien cultures during his training, but nothing in the textbooks mentioned anything about true names, or why they seemed so important to Vara. She had looked at him like he had done something impossible, something that only someone with a deep understanding of her people could do. But how could Kane know something like that? He was just a human soldier, stranded on an unknown planet trying to survive. Despite the confusion, Kane knew he couldn't let this mystery distract him. His main goal was still to get off this planet. But as he prepared to leave, the thought of Vara lingered in his mind. What was her story? Why did she react so strongly to him calling her by her true name? As Kane packed his small bag, he heard a rustling in the bushes. His hand instinctively reached for his weapon, but he quickly stopped himself. It was probably just an animal. There were plenty of strange creatures on this planet. Still, he couldn't ignore the tension that rose in his chest. His first encounter with Vara had left him on edge, and he wasn't sure if she would return as an ally or an enemy. But when the figure stepped out from behind the trees, Kane froze. It was Vara. She stood tall and powerful, her violet skin gleaming, in the light filtering through the trees. The sword on her back was the same as before, but this time she wasn't threatening him. Her posture was more relaxed, but her eyes, those bright yellow eyes, were focused on him, intense and full of something Kane couldn't quite place. You're still here, Kane said, trying to sound casual, though his heart raced. I didn't expect you to come back. Vara's lips twitched into something like a smile, though it was hard to tell. I didn't expect you to still be alive, human, she replied, her voice calm but carrying an edge. I thought you might try to leave without understanding anything. Kane raised an eyebrow. I don't understand anything, but I'm trying to. You have a lot to learn, Vara said, her tone softer now, almost resigned. She took a step closer, studying him carefully. I owe you an explanation, I suppose. About what happened. About why I reacted the way I did. Kane nodded, his curiosity growing. I don't understand it. I called you by your true name, and you dropped my sword, she interrupted, finishing his thought. Yes, I did. She paused, and for a moment, Kane thought she wouldn't say anything more. But then, slowly, she spoke again, her voice quieter this time. The true name is not something that is shared with outsiders. It is not just a name, it's part of who we are. It holds our history, our struggles, our memories. Only those who are close to us, those we trust, can speak it. It is not just a word. It is a bond. Kane listened carefully, trying to absorb her words. So when I called you by it, it felt like something I hadn't felt in years, she said, her voice distant, as if she were remembering something painful. Like something was awakened in me. It's not something I wanted to remember. Kane could sense that this was difficult for her to talk about, but he also felt that there was more to her story than she was letting on. What happened? He asked gently. Vera looked at him, her gaze unwavering. I was once a leader of my people. A great warrior respected by all. My name was feared across the galaxy. But I was betrayed. My people turned against me and they erased my name, my true name. They gave me a new one, a name that meant nothing. Kane didn't know what to say. He had never imagined something like that. He had heard of wars, of betrayal. But this was different. This was personal. The name you spoke, Vera continued, her voice breaking slightly, was the name of the warrior I used to be, the leader I once was. Calling me by it, it brought all of that back. All the pain, all the memories. It made me feel that weak. Kane stepped forward, not sure what he was doing. But something about her words, about the way she spoke of her past, made him want to understand her more. But you're not weak. You're here, alive. You fought for your people and you still can. Vera's expression softened slightly, and for the first time Kane saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. You're wrong, she whispered. I'm not the same person I once was, the person who led her people, the person who had honor. She shook her head. I don't even know who I am anymore. Kane didn't know how to respond to that. He had always believed in his own identity. He had always known who he was. But Vera, this incredible warrior, was lost in her own pain, her own memories. She had been torn apart by her past. I don't know how to fix this, Kane said, his voice quiet. But I'll help you if I can. I don't know much about your people, but I do know that your true name means something important, and maybe you can find that person again. The one who had honor, the one who led. Vara looked at him, her eyes searching his face. There was a long silence, and for a moment, Kane thought she might say something. But instead, she nodded, slowly. Perhaps, she said quietly. Perhaps you're right. But it's not something that can be fixed easily. My people, they've changed. They see me as a traitor now, and they have their own leaders. Ones who want nothing more than to see me dead. Kane clenched his fists. Then I'll help you take back your place. We can fight together. Vera's gaze softened, though she didn't smile. You are brave, human, but this is not your fight. Maybe not, Kane replied, but it's mine now. You're not alone in this. For the first time since they had met, Vera seemed to relax just a little. Her shoulders, which had been tense and rigid, eased slightly. She didn't say anything, but Kane could see that something had shifted. They stood there, in the silence of the jungle, two warriors, from different worlds connected by a single unspoken promise to fight and survive together. The jungle stretched on, thick with the scent of moss and damp earth. Kane and Vera had been traveling for hours, the dense trees and unfamiliar sounds of the alien world making every step feel heavier than the last. The heat of the day had passed, leaving the air cooler but still thick with humidity. They moved silently, each step a reminder of the difficult journey ahead. Vara's presence beside him was powerful. She was every bit the warrior she had claimed to be, and her silence spoke volumes. Cain had learned over the past few days that she wasn't someone who easily trusted others. Her past was a tangled mess of loss, betrayal, and broken promises, and every word she spoke about her history was carefully chosen, as if she were weighing the cost of sharing each piece. Cain wasn't sure what they were heading toward. Vara had been leading the way, her steps confident as she navigated the unfamiliar terrain, but she had yet to tell him where they were going. The only thing that was certain was that they were running out of time. Her people, or what was left of them, were still hunting her. Her betrayal was something that could not be forgiven, no matter how much she wished it were otherwise. "Where are we going?" Cain asked, breaking the silence. Vara glanced at him but didn't answer immediately. She had been avoiding his questions about their destination for days, and he had learned not to press too hard. But now, after everything they had been through, together he needed to know. "There is a place," Vara said at last, her voice low, almost distant. "A place where I can speak to my people, where I can see if they will listen to me. But it's far from here." "How far?" Cain asked, concern rising in his chest. He had no idea where they were going or what kind of dangers lay ahead, but he had to keep moving forward. There was no other choice. Vara didn't answer right away. Instead, she stopped, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon. Her hand rested on the hilt of her sword, ready for whatever danger might emerge. Cain followed her lead, his senses alert. "Get ready," she said softly, her voice filled with warning. Before Cain could ask what was going on, a rustling sound came from the underbrush to their left. Then, the unmistakable sound of footsteps, heavy, purposeful. Someone, or something, was approaching. The hairs on the back of Cain's neck stood up. A figure emerged from the shadows, but it wasn't just one figure. It was a group. Cain's heart sank. These were not random travelers or animals. These were warriors, armed and ready for battle. They moved with precision, their eyes scanning the area as they approached. "Vara," one of them called out, his voice deep and commanding. Cain's blood ran cold. The voice was familiar. It was one of Vara's former allies, someone who had been part of the same faction that had betrayed her. "Vara," the man repeated, his tone colder now. "It's time to end this." Vara's expression hardened, her face turning to stone. She stepped forward, her hand still on her sword, but she didn't draw it. "Not yet. I told you I was done with this," she said, her voice sharp but calm. "You don't get to dictate my fate anymore." The leader of the group, a tall, broad-shouldered warrior, stepped closer. His armor was marked with the insignia of the faction that had once been her people. "You were once our leader," he said, his voice laced with anger. "You betrayed us, Vara. You betrayed your own people. And now you want to return like nothing ever happened?" "I didn't betray anyone," Vara replied, her voice steady, but the anger in her eyes was unmistakable. "I did what was right, and I paid the price for it. But I'm not going to let you erase everything I've done, everything I've fought for." Cain watched the exchange carefully, trying to make sense of the situation. He had known from the beginning that Vara's past was complicated, but seeing the anger in her old ally's eyes, he could tell that things were much worse than he had imagined. "Your name is gone, Vara," the leader spat, his words full of contempt. "The true name you speak of, it means nothing now. You are nothing now." The words hit Vara like a physical blow. Her jaw clenched, and Cain could see the struggle inside her. This was the moment she had been dreading. The moment when her past, the parts she had tried to forget, came crashing back. But then, something happened. A shift in the air. Cain wasn't sure if it was the tension or if it was something else, something more powerful. But Vara's eyes began to glow, a soft yellow light that radiated from within. Cain felt it too. A change, a force building inside her. Without warning, she drew her sword. The blade glinted in the light as she swung it, cutting through the air with the precision of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. The warriors in front of her moved quickly, drawing their own weapons. But Vera was faster. She was always faster. Cain felt a surge of adrenaline as he drew his own weapon, moving to help her, but he didn't have time to think. The battle had already begun. The clash of metal echoed through the jungle, sharp and unforgiving. Cain fought alongside Vera, but he could tell she wasn't just fighting to survive. She was fighting to reclaim everything she had lost. The power, the respect, the name. It was all coming back to her in waves, and she wasn't going to let anyone take it from her. In the heat of the battle, Cain caught a glimpse of Vera's face. It was no longer the face of the woman who had spoken to him, quietly, the one who had shared her pain. This was the warrior she had once been, the one who had led her people into battle, and she was unstoppable. But just as quickly as it had begun, the fight came to a halt. The leader of the enemy faction fell to the ground, his sword clattering beside him. The others hesitated, watching in shock as their leader lay defeated. Vara stood over him, her chest heaving with the effort of the fight. She looked down at the fallen man, her face unreadable. Then, without a word, she turned to Cain. "You were right," she said, her voice low but filled with resolve. "I am not done yet, but this is just the beginning." Cain stood next to her, his heart still racing. He had no idea what the future held, but one thing was clear. Vara was not someone to be underestimated. The warrior she had been was still there, and together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. And as the jungle grew quiet again, the only sound that remained was the soft hum of the wind through the trees, carrying with it the promise of what was to come. The jungle was quieter now. The sounds of battle had faded, leaving only the distant calls of strange creatures and the soft rustling of leaves. Cain stood beside Vara, both of them catching their breath after the fight. The fallen warriors lay, scattered around them, and Vera's sword, though covered in dirt, still glinted in the fading light. Cain could see the weight of the battle on her, both the physical and the emotional strain. Though she had fought with the power of someone who had led armies, there was a deep sadness in her eyes that couldn't be hidden. The battle had reminded her of things she had buried for so long. "Are you okay?" Cain asked, his voice softer than before. It wasn't just about the physical wounds. He knew there was more to Vera's pain than the scars on her body. Vera didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked down at the sword in her hand, her fingers tightening around the hilt. For a moment, Cain thought she might speak, but when she finally looked up, it wasn't at him, it was at the horizon. "I should have never let it come to this," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I should have known better. I should have seen the signs." Cain didn't know what she meant, but he stayed silent, giving her space to talk. He had learned by now that Vera only shared her past when she was ready. And if she wanted to talk, now he would listen. "I was once their leader," she continued, her eyes distant. "I led them into battle. I commanded them. We fought together side by side. We were unstoppable." Cain could see the pride in her eyes, even as the pain lingered. He didn't know what it felt like to be a leader, to carry that kind of responsibility, but he understood what it was like to lose something important. "But something changed," Vera said, her voice cracking slightly. "My people, they started to change. They grew hungry for power. They lost their way. And when they turned on me, it wasn't just me they betrayed. It was everything we had fought for, the ideals we believed in." Cain stepped closer, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. "What happened?" Vera paused, her gaze shifting to the sky as if searching for the words. "I did what I thought was right. I refused to let them conquer others, to use their power for control. I believed in peace and unity. But they wanted more, they wanted to dominate, so I fought back." She shook her head, a bitter smile tugging at her lips. "And they called me a traitor. They branded me as a rebel, someone who would destroy the future of our people. They didn't see what I was trying to protect." Cain could hear the hurt in her voice. The deep betrayal of her people, the very ones she had led, had broken her in ways he couldn't fully understand. but he knew that the pain of losing everything you had fought for was something he could relate to. He had seen it, in his own life, the way war could change a person, twist them into something they never meant to be. I was exiled, Vara said softly. They erased my name. They took away the only thing that mattered, my true name, and with it, they took my honor. Cain felt a rush of empathy for her. Losing your name wasn't just losing a word. It was losing your identity, your connection to everything you had been. It was like they had erased her from the history she had built, and now here she was, fighting to reclaim it. But you didn't give up, Cain said, his voice steady. You're still here, you're still fighting. Vara didn't respond right away. She simply stood there, staring at the ground, lost in thought. The silence stretched between them, and Cain knew this was a moment she had to face alone. But he was there, and that he hoped was enough. After a long moment, Vara finally spoke again, her voice softer this time. I wasn't just fighting for my honor. I was fighting for my people. I thought that if I could stop them, if I could make them see reason, they would understand, but I failed. You didn't fail, Cain said, his voice firm. You fought for what you believed in, that's what matters. Not everyone can say that. Vara looked at him, her eyes searching his face, as if trying to read him. You don't understand. You're human. You don't know what it's like. To be torn between duty and morality, to watch everything you've worked for slip away. Cain nodded. No, I don't. But I know what it's like to lose. To feel like everything's been taken from you. And I know what it's like to have to keep going, even when it feels impossible. For the first time, a faint glimmer of a smile appeared on Vara's face. It was small, almost invisible, but it was there. Maybe you do understand. They stood there in silence for a while, the weight of their conversation hanging between them. The jungle seemed quieter now, as though it too was listening to what had been said. Finally, Vara turned toward Cain, her expression hardening once more. But I can't keep looking back. I can't keep dwelling on the past. I have to move forward. I have to take back what's mine. Cain didn't hesitate. Then let's do it, let's go get it. Vara looked at him for a moment longer, then nodded. We'll need to be careful. The enemy won't just let us walk in and take what we want. They'll fight for it. I'm not afraid of a fight, Cain said with a smile. And neither are you? Vara didn't smile back, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes, something like determination, like a fire that had been reignited. Then let's get moving, she said, her voice resolute. There's still a long way to go. With that, they set off once again, the jungle opening up before them. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with danger and unknowns, but one thing was clear. They would face it together. And whatever lay in their future, Cain knew that Vara was no longer just a warrior fighting for her past. She was a woman ready to reclaim her future. The temple doors slowly creaked open, revealing the darkened interior. The air inside was cool and heavy, filled with the smell of ancient stone and the weight of forgotten memories. Cain could feel the tension rise as he stepped across the threshold, the low glow of the distant torches casting long shadows across the walls. This was it, the place where everything had started, and where it would finally come to an end. Vara stood beside him, her face set with determination. Her body was still covered in the remnants of the battle outside, but her eyes were sharper than ever. There was no turning back now. Are you ready? Cain asked softly, his voice almost lost in the vastness of the temple's grand hall. Vara didn't answer at first. She simply stared ahead, her eyes narrowing as she took in the sight of the long hallway before them. The sound of their footsteps echoed off the stone walls, a constant reminder of the quiet danger they were walking into. Cain knew that, deep inside, Vara was preparing herself for the moment she had always feared, the confrontation with her own people. I've been ready for a long time, she finally said, her voice steady, though it held an edge of something ancient and unresolved. They moved forward, their steps slow and careful. The air grew colder and the silence grew thicker. In the distance, Kane could see figures standing in the shadows, watching them approach. He tensed, but Vera remained calm, her posture unwavering. The figures stepped forward, revealing themselves to be a small group of warriors. Some wore the same armor as the ones they had fought outside. Others were dressed in ceremonial robes that marked their rank. Among them stood a tall, imposing figure, his face hidden beneath a helmet. His presence was commanding, and Kane could feel the weight of his gaze even from this distance. "Vera," the figure said, his voice booming through the silence. "You've come back. I knew you would." Vera didn't flinch, her expression as cold as stone. "I didn't come back for you," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I came back to reclaim what's mine." The tall figure stepped forward, his armored boots making a loud sound on the stone floor. He raised his hand, signaling the others to stand back. "You were once our leader," he said, his tone laced with contempt. "But you betrayed us. You left us behind when we needed you the most. Now you come back to claim what? Your honor? Your name?" Vara's eyes flickered with pain, but her voice remained steady. "I didn't betray anyone," she said. "I did what I had to do, and I paid the price. But I'm not here for redemption. I'm here because my people deserve the truth. They deserve to know who I really am." The figure's helmeted head tilted as if considering her words. "And what truth would that be, Vara?" he asked, his voice dripping with mockery. "That you failed? That you couldn't stop us from becoming what we are?" "No," Vara replied, her voice cold now. "I'm here to show you that there is still hope. That we can rebuild what was lost, but not with you in charge." The figure's eyes flashed with anger, and he stepped closer. "You don't get to decide that," he snarled. "You don't get to come back and try to change everything." Kane could see the tension building, the air thick with the promise of violence. He moved closer to Vara, standing by her side. He didn't know what would happen next, but he knew one thing for sure. Vara wasn't backing down. "I fought for everything I believe in," Vara said, her voice growing stronger. "And I'll fight for it again. If you won't listen to me, I'll make you listen." The tall figure laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the temple. "You think you can fight us all? You think you can defeat what we've become? I don't need to defeat you," Vara said, her eyes burning with determination. "I just need you to hear me. And if you don't, then we'll fight. But I won't stop." The figure's eyes narrowed, and he reached for his weapon, his hand closing around the hilt of a long, curved sword. "Then we'll see if you're truly worthy of leading us again." The tension broke, and the room erupted into chaos. The figure lunged forward, his sword swinging down with incredible speed. Vara was ready. She moved with the precision of someone who had fought countless battles before. Her sword met his with a sharp clash, sparks flying from the impact. The sound of metal on metal echoed through the temple, filling the air with the force of their fight. Kane stood back, watching as Vera fought with a strength and grace that took his breath away. She moved like a storm, her every strike calculated and precise. Her body seemed to flow with the rhythm of the battle, and her eyes were fixed on her opponent with unwavering focus. But the tall figure was strong, and his strikes were just as deadly. The battle between them was fierce, each clash of swords sending shockwaves through the room. Kane knew that Vera was more than capable of handling herself. But this man, this leader, was a challenge unlike any she had faced before. Vera's breath came in quick gasps as she parried another blow, her sword flashing as she deflected the attack. The tall figure staggered back, his armor dented from the impact. He raised his sword again, but this time Vera was faster. With a quick, fluid movement, she struck, her sword cutting through the air in a precise arc that landed with a sharp, final blow. The leader fell to the ground, his sword slipping from his hand. He looked up at Vara, his eyes wide with shock and disbelief. You really did it." Vara stood over him, her sword still raised. "I didn't want to do this," she said softly. "But I won't let you destroy what we fought for." The room fell silent. The other warriors stood frozen, their expressions a mix of fear, admiration, and disbelief. For a moment, nothing moved. Then, Slowly, one by one, they lowered their weapons. Vara lowered her sword as well, her body tense but no longer filled with the rage she had carried into the fight. "This is just the beginning," she said. "We can rebuild, but it starts with the truth. It starts with me, and it starts with all of you." The warriors nodded, some of them stepping forward, others remaining where they stood. It wasn't over yet, but for the first time in a long time, there was hope in the air. Vara had reclaimed her place not just as a warrior but as a leader, and now it was time to rebuild. Kane stepped forward, standing beside her. "You've done it," he said, his voice full of pride. "You've won." Vara looked at him, a small but genuine smile tugging at her lips. "No," she replied. "We've won." Together, they faced the future, no longer defined by the past, but by the possibilities that lay ahead. The dense jungle stretched endlessly before them as Kane and Vara moved cautiously forward. Their path was clear, but the air was thick with the tension of what lay ahead. Each step seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. The quiet of the jungle broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant sounds of alien creatures moving through the underbrush. Kane could feel it, the anticipation, the fear, the knowledge that everything had led to this moment. The enemy wasn't just a group of warriors. They were Vara's former allies, the ones who had once followed her and trusted her. Now they saw her as a traitor, and those who betrayed her were not the kind of people who would simply let her walk away. But this time, Vara wasn't walking away. She wasn't hiding from her past or her people. She was returning to confront them, to take back what had been stolen from her, to reclaim her name. "I'm not sure what we'll find when we get there," Vara said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of the words. "My people, they've changed. They're not the same as they were when I led them, and those who remain loyal to me, if any still do, they're in hiding." "Then we'll find them too," Kane replied. "And if they don't want to stand with you, we'll fight for you, together." Vara nodded, her face hardening. She had heard the conviction in Kane's voice, but she knew that even with all the courage in the world, the road ahead would not be easy. Her people had been changed by power, by fear, and facing them would be a test of everything she had learned, everything she had fought for. The journey took them deeper into the heart of the jungle. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the shadows grew longer and the air grew colder. Vara led the way, her eyes constantly scanning the surroundings, alert for any signs of danger. Kane followed closely behind, his mind focused on the task ahead, but his thoughts kept drifting back to Vara's words. What had happened to her people? What had turned them against her? Finally, as the moon began to rise in the sky, they reached the outskirts of a small clearing. The ground was covered in thick grass, and in the center stood a structure, ancient but still standing. It looked like a temple, or perhaps a fortress, built from the same materials as the rest of the world around them. The design was unlike anything Kane had seen before. It was both beautiful and intimidating, as if it had been crafted with purpose. To protect, to defend, to hold power. "This is it," Vara said softly, her voice filled with a strange mixture of resolve and regret. "The place where I once stood, where I gave my orders and my loyalty, where I led my people. It's where it all began, and where it all ended." Kane looked at the structure, feeling the weight of Vara's words. He had heard her talk about her past, but standing here in front of this place, he could feel the history of it. He could sense the power that had once radiated from it, and the power that was still there, hidden beneath the surface. "How many are there?" Kane asked, his voice low. He wasn't just asking about the warriors inside. He was asking about the people who had once followed Vara, her allies, her friends. "I don't know," Vara replied, her eyes narrowing as she studied the temple. "But I know they won't welcome me. They'll see me as a threat, and they'll try to stop me from speaking to anyone. If we're going to get inside, we'll have to fight our way through." Cain didn't hesitate. Then we fight. Vera turned to him, her eyes sharp. Are you ready for that? Are you prepared to face them? Cain didn't flinch. He had been in countless battles, but this was different. This wasn't just about survival. This was about standing by someone he had come to respect, someone who had shown him strength in ways he hadn't imagined. I've got your back, he said, his voice unwavering. Let's do this. Together they approached the entrance of the temple, each step bringing them closer to the confrontation they knew was inevitable. The door was guarded by two figures, their dark armor blending into the night. They stood silently, waiting, as if they knew who was coming. Vera stepped forward, her sword still sheathed, but her body language tense, prepared for what was to come. Cain followed, his hand resting on the hilt of his own weapon. The guards didn't speak as they blocked their path, but their posture made it clear. They weren't going to let them pass without a fight. Vara, one of the guards said, his voice cold and emotionless. We knew you would come. You were always stubborn, but you're too late. There's nothing for you here anymore. Vara's eyes flashed with a mix of anger and sorrow. I never left. I was exiled, but I've always been here. This is still my home. You betrayed us, the other guard said, stepping forward. You betrayed your people, and now you think you can walk back in like nothing happened? I didn't betray anyone, Vera said, her voice firm but laced with pain. I did what I thought was right, and now I'm here to take back what's mine. My people deserve to know the truth. The guards exchanged a look, and for a moment there was a flicker of hesitation in their eyes. But then, without warning, they drew their weapons. Cain's heart raced. He knew this was it. There was no turning back now. The battle started quickly. The guards were fast, skilled, and relentless, but Vera was faster. Her movements were fluid, precise, as if every strike was a part of a larger plan. Cain fought alongside her, his weapon clashing with theirs, but he kept his focus on her. He knew this was her fight. His job was to make sure she survived it. With a quick, decisive movement, Vara disarmed one of the guards, sending his weapon flying across the clearing. The other guard didn't hesitate. He attacked, but Vara blocked his strike and countered with a swift blow that sent him to the ground. Breathing heavily, she stood over the fallen guards, her chest rising and falling with the effort of the fight. This isn't over, she said, her voice low. It's just beginning. Cain nodded, wiping the sweat from his brow. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. They both knew the hardest part was yet to come. The doors to the temple creaked open, revealing the dark interior. The path to the truth and to the future lay ahead.